I'm someone who tends to think about the meaning of life quite a bit, and I've been thinking, in an ideal world, would we all be creative? Or are some souls here to experience life? I used to think that the meaning of life was to create, and that our birthrights was stolen from us through, these systems and this indoctrination, the conditioning. Because really, like, when you think about a lot of these jobs that exist, it's all man-made under this system of like disconnection. I'm realizing that not every person on this earth is meant to create. Like, that's not what everyone craves is creating. I do think that some people are here to live life and to experience life in just that way of like enjoying life and not having this existential need to put their experience into an art form or whatever way of creation that one's soul is pulled to. Just like anything, like, I think there's benefits to being on this creative path, and it's a very unique path. I think to be a true creative, which I'm going to get into, like, to be a true creative, I don't think that there's many real creatives out there. We look at the online and it seems like almost everyone is a creator, but I think that the term of creator or content creator is a bit disconnected from like what creativity really means. But it is a creative path, and it is a luxury, and to go on a creative path of any sorts, it does require certain conditions. If you were born in a war zone, or you're born in a country that's being bombed, or you're born in a certain circumstance like extreme poverty in a third world country, there's a less likely chance that you will become a creator. And that's not every situation. Like, there's some situations that could be an advantage because you go through harsh conditions, and that can make your story. But it does on average mean that most likely people are less likely to be creators. Even if you're born into poverty in North America, it's still a less extreme poverty than being born into somewhere where it's like extreme condition, extremely poor. You can't walk down the street and have access to internet. Like, it is harder to be a creator. Being able to have the opportunity to create is such a luxury, but so many people have this luxury and they still do not create. I don't think everyone that is creating has tons of money. It's something I see circulating a lot. Well, it's like, if I had more time, I would create. I saw this quote and it said something along the lines of, if people had money or time, like, everyone would be an artist. But I don't think that's true, because if people had more free time, I think what they would be doing with their free time is what they already do with their free time. I feel like it's so easy to look at someone else's life, especially with social media, and to think that they have certain things handed to them. But to be a creator, it does require this level of grit. I mean, I've done this in the past, and also like with age and circumstances, and I would compare myself to make myself feel better. I would be like, okay, well, I would be like, in the creative industry, well, this person, they're a Nepo baby and they have connections. This person is in this acting industry, like not because they're good, but because they have, this was just a thought in my head, because their uncle is a filmmaker or this. And that's true. Like, if you are born in a certain place, there's certain advantages that you could have, and you have certain connections, and you have better chances, I guess, if you want to use the word chances, of being a creator or making whatever creative dream you have come to fruition. But I also think that it's also a disadvantage when you were handed certain things. Like, when you were handed wealth, or you're handed like this easier life per se, there's also downsides to that. You don't develop grit, you don't develop your own story. If you want to go act in someone else's film, it's like, okay, you could go do that, but like, you don't have your own original story of perseverance. You're constantly existing in someone else's world. And I think that's what makes a really good artist. When I say artist, I'm not talking about painting. I know some people use the term artist and it means like be a painter. To me, like, being an artist is the way that we see the world And it's one way to be creative. Like, it's not the only way to be creative, which I'll get into. It's just one form. Because I don't think to be creative, you have to prove it, and you have to turn it into something that lasts forever or makes an impact. Not everything has to be like Leonardo da Vinci. Not everything has to be such a grand scale of excellence and creativity for it to matter. I do think, in a sense, when you come from a certain level of privilege, you don't have that friction. And I think the psyche and that friction, it's not just with the story, it's also about how the person becomes that person in the psyche. I think that's what makes artists interesting, because when you look at a really good, like going back to art, a really good creative piece of art, the reason why it's good is because you have to question it and you're seeing their worldview. Going back to the Mona Lisa, I believe that no matter where you looked at that painting, it had a different angle, but it was still perfection. Perfection the way that it had character. Today, perfection, and it's about, this was like divine perfection, and it encompassed this divine nature of duality and paradoxes and truth, and going back to this consciousness level. There's theories inside of this one painting, and people could interpret it, but to interpret this painting would be like to interpret the artist's mind. And I think that's what true creativity and true greatness is, when it comes from the mind and the artist's way of seeing the world. That is so impactful. Sometimes I feel like art or creativity, or I used to feel like this, I guess, was so surface level. That's not real work. You know, there is some people out here doing more intricate things like heart surgeons and all these things, but I always go back to this concept: are we all meant to be creative? And I think about many jobs becoming automated, and I start to think about the value of a human. I start to think about, okay, well, your value comes from who you were before the world told you who to be, because I believe like who you were before the world told you to be was who you were before the conditioning. So it's like that was your true self. We go through life, we go through conditioning, we go through trauma, we go through different things in life that steal us away from ourselves. They say the creative adult is the child who survived, but I think that a lot of times like artists are people that not necessarily survive, like were deeply psychologically affected to the point where they fundamentally saw the world in a different place, and they have had so much pain to the point like they cannot communicate with others. I think that there's a lot of suffering that comes from this creative path. And on one end, people say, I wish I was creative, like I wish I could be creative. But sometimes this creativity and this like fundamental different way of seeing the world comes from a life of pain. Some people that study philosophy, and I know this is the case for me, it came from a place of fundamentally having to understand how the human psyche works, and just becoming so fascinated with how the human psyche works and manipulation, and like why people do certain things. So that's also me following my creativity. For me, that was something I have prioritized. I definitely have had an advantage, I guess you could say, compared to, let's say, someone across the world living in a third world country, because I was born in Canada, I was born in North America. But at the same time, I had different obstacles, and no, I did not come from wealth. I was not born like in poverty, but yeah, I worked at the age of 12. I did go down this path of conformity. Most of us go down this path of conforming to social expectations. And I feel like I am the creative adult who has survived. But I also believe that this was also my soul's path to be creative. Like I had to go on this journey and live a certain life and a story, because when I was younger, I wanted to write novels and books, and I wanted to make movies, and then I wanted to do all these things. And then, you know, I'm not going to go too much into it, but I completely conformed, and I went and studied science, and just because the conditioning and the shame for being so different, shame really affected me, and I just became this like shell of myself, this person who was not myself. But I found myself going back to this creations because that was my inner child, and I had to like go back and like retrieve that child to be creative. So it's this dynamic of understanding the psyche, but also like retrieving the child. And also connected purpose. I think when you go through certain experiences in life, that's where people's purpose comes in. And I think that creativity can be highly connected to one's purpose. And I think that's a major difference between people who prefer to experience life more versus people creativity and creating is their life. I do not think one is better than the other. Both have immense benefits and cons. But I do think to live a creative life, not like having creativity in your life, because I think we all are creative beings, to truly pursue is like you are one with your creation. That's how I genuinely view what I'm creating. The more work I do on myself, the more that will manifest into whatever I create. And we're also not limited to one type of creation. I also think there's a large chunk of people who do have dreams of being a creator, in a sense where they wish that their career in their life was creative, but they don't pursue it. And that was me. I gave up on everything that I wanted to do with my life because I was in an environment, again, like the shame conformity through my school system, like being an extremely different learner. It's not my parents' fault. Their smaller mindsets and their conditioning. They said it's like a chance encounter. You need to be realistic. Like if you want to have money, you know, we don't come from a family where you can do this path of an artist. Like that's where people that have money in a certain sense, people that have pursue art or fashion or things like this, English or writing, like come on, like think realistically, like think logically. That is not true. I know that now what is within you is what you're meant to follow, but most of the world does not know that because we live in a world of extreme conditioning. Again, like it's not my parents' fault, it's just the reality of they thought they were protecting me. They were just doing the best they could to steer me in the right direction so I would be successful. When you do come to this realization, not a lot of people are willing to walk away from certain things, walk away from a life that they built, even though they come to the realization, this is not what I thought it would be. It's very painful to walk away from people. It's very painful to walk away from things unless you embark on that journey of the unknown and to follow your soul, which you're not going to have it all right in front of you. But unless you really just trust that what's within and like let go, then I don't believe you're ever going to live. I mean, you can't live a creative life if you're not willing to let go of certain stability. I guess I don't know if that's the right word. Not willing to let go of a safer life and a safer route. I got to this point where I was so half in on different things with my life. I was studying science, but I was also soul searching in I guess I'm still in my young adult years, but from my teenage years to going to university, was constantly taking a gap semester, gap time to travel and like to find my soul. But I always had like one foot in, one foot out because I didn't know what to do, and also I needed the finances. Sometimes having one foot in and one foot out could serve you. And I say the finances is because I got some academic scholarship, and that was helping me survive and helping me live because I did not have financial support from my parents. During this time, I tried all of these different things. I tried photography, and I really just like followed my creativity because I was younger. In a sense, I had some time to do that. It wasn't like I immediately just found my soul. Finding my soul has been this process. It took a lot of soul searching before I was like, oh my god, like I know who I am. I know what I'm here to do. After knowing like what I'm here to do, actually like trying to embody it, it's still a journey. Like I'm not there. The path of being a creator is really going through yourself, letting yourself die a million times. And I do believe you need this obsession, this passion, and I don't think it's bad. Like people are always saying like, you need balance, you need to live. I am constantly being told how I live because I do fall into this path more of living a creative life, and I'm constantly being told like how I live is wrong, and I question that all the time. And that's why, you know, I talk about this in an episode and talk about the experience-based life. And it's true, like there's things that I'm missing out on by choosing to live this life. But then when I like really get in touch with how I want to live, I want to live like this. I don't think this is like the path to a happier life though. I think It's a path to creative fulfillment, and that's what fulfills me on such a soul-based level, creative fulfillment. And it's not about awards or achievement, it's about me getting closer to what I see in my head and like what I know I can do and what I can be. I just have such a strong visual mindset, and it's like all about this homecoming thing to myself. What I want to create is my baby. It's like birthing it from within me. That does mean to follow that path. I am sacrificing other things. I am sacrificing relationships. I'm sacrificing, in a way, milestones, in a way that's kind of sad. I don't really celebrate holidays. I don't have a friend group. I don't have a romantic life. Like, I don't make time for it. I don't try to find someone to align with. I don't go on dates. Like, I don't even try. And part of my mind's like, you know, maybe I should be having some balance in my life. And, you know, maybe I should be doing things outside of myself. I go to a new country and I'm literally just doing things within myself, creating from within, and I'm not exploring life outside of me. I'm not seeing the world. I do travel a lot, but I'm not doing these typical things people should do. You get the point. But the thing is, my brain is oriented in a way that's like, I need meaning. I need to understand, like, well, what's the point? And I've constantly, I've thought about this. I look at other families or friend groups walking around. I get a little jealous. I kind of wish I had that. But then when I think about it, if I had this girlfriend group where I'm like, hey, let's go get brunch, or like, let's go out, which I don't do. I've gone out like twice in my life, and it was like to a rock concert. Literally, we made it like a photo shoot. I don't do these rite of passage things. And I'm like, am I missing out on my 20s? Am I missing out on my life? But it's just not what fulfills me, what I'm interested in. But I do think about that. I'm like, you are sacrificing your life in a sense to create life. I don't know if all creatives have this. I don't like the word delusional self-belief. I have this, what people would call delusional self-belief. But it's not delusional, because I've had personal spiritual experiences within. I just know what I'm here to do. It's also a gift. Like, I feel like it is a gift to have spiritual awakening and to understand like what you're here to do. But it's also, I don't know, it's also hard because it isolates you even further from other people. But for me, it's not a choice. It was never a choice. I fundamentally see the world differently. I fundamentally think differently. I just like to be alone. It's different. It's not wrong. To even just begin, it's such a heavy price to pay, really. And I think that's why like a lot of people do wish they lived a creative life and watch from the outside of people, and like, and they do say these things like, well, you know, I have to do this, I have to do this, which, listen, like, are valid. I have been in survival mode for so long, and when you're in survival mode, it's definitely difficult to create. It's almost impossible to create because you have to either rise above your environment through escaping into the woods, meditating. It's very difficult, almost impossible. When you're survival mode, you just need to survive. And that's also a big reality about being creative. When you're in survival mode, that's the season you're in. I think that some people thrive off having creative space, and that is where their creativity thrives. I have been in survival mode so much in my life, and I've been wanting to create certain things for years, but I literally could not create these things. And I tried to create these things when I was in certain spaces, but I lived on this mattress living with multiple girls, and we had rats everywhere. It was infestation, and there was mold everywhere. And because like mold toxicity is a real thing, my face became puffy, my lips, like everything became puffy. I just felt so ugly, and I just like could not do it. My skin had acne. Also, these girls, every time I try to create something, like, these girls will laugh at me. When you're in survival mode or you're like abusive environment, like, I'm not going to go into much of my story, it's just difficult. And like, that is something where it's like, it's not just people making excuses, like, it's genuinely difficult to create. Looking back, I intuitively was like, okay, I'm just gonna like honor the transformation. I'm here right now. I don't know how I'm gonna get out of this, how I'm gonna like, you know, what can I do to like get capital to get myself out of this in a way that's like not selling my soul. Like, sometimes that's just the season that you're in, and you can't see like why you're in that season. Sometimes there is a reason for it in the creative path. Also, sometimes I think that the best creators do come from having these hardships or these hard stories, because I think that sometimes these are a test. These are tests to see how are you going to handle this. This is like a final test before breakthrough. I know that sounds so cringy and so cliche to say, like, oh, you know, you're gonna be tested before you break through. But there's a reason. Some quotes are overused, but some quotes are just, they're, you know, they're just cliche for a reason. Like, they're just because it makes sense. And I know I've honestly like been tested. I've gone through things. I'm like, why is this happening to me? Like, I thought I cleared my karma. Like, hello? I don't understand. Like, I'm a good person. I don't get it. That was either test to see, are you going to stay true to yourself, or to show me something, like how I handle, show how strong I am or how far I've come or something like that. I also think that transmutation is something that I actually want to learn how I can talk about it more. How do you actually explain how to like transmute energy? I wholeheartedly believe this, even if this sounds cringy too. Negative energy can be transmuted into your level up in your creative path. If you do want to go this path of being a creative, any negative thing or anything that happens to you is fuel. When you take that energy and you actually like feel it, something magical happens. I swear, if someone would do something like vindictive to me and I just feel it and I cry and I understand this is all happening for this divine reason, I just believe that and I just will feel it and not repress it, I swear, a week later or however long, that will in a way make me elevate. I don't understand it all, but it just does. And also it's like I have a story to tell. I want to write books and stuff like that, so it's like I have another story to tell. One night of like someone treating me bad and pain, but it's like I have another story to tell. Also sometimes I'm reminded of like, oh, the corruption in the world, and as mad as it seems, sometimes I crave this more like destructive, not from a place of toxicity, I don't think it's from a place of toxicity, but it's like in a way of devotion to my art. I kind of like these darker negative energy people send my way or whatever, or like experiences, because some people are, you know, because it reminds me why, like it literally reminds me why I'm doing a certain thing. I just feel like it really does bring me back to that core reason why I'm creating, and it makes me like even more to like hold on to that and remember like, okay, I'm creating this for not for this superficial reason or something like that, which, you know, you have to focus on that like superficial version, like marketing wise or whatever, if you're going to be a creative. I believe in this day and age you need the depth behind it. Like that's the whole point of why you're doing it. It reconnects me with my why, which I never ever want to lose, because at the end of the day, like, the reason why I went on this path was, yeah, to honor my soul, but also to understand I actually in the end want to make an impact with what I do. So it just reconnects me with that. There's a blessing in the pain for creatives. I do think that sometimes the best creative people, their lives have been friction. Creativity and friction, it is kind of this masterpiece, that resistance. And sometimes it is that pain that cracks people open to become artists. I think it's a very rare percentage of people that are born and be like, okay, this is what I'm meant to do. I'm meant to be a philosopher, or I'm meant to be an artist. A lot of artists come into it not early in life, unless you do come from, again, like a Nepo family and they're like pointing you in this direction of art and they celebrate that. But I think in most cases that is a very rare percentage of people. When we're talking about real creative brilliance, it does come from like being broken open to consciousness level. I guess I keep tying real creativity to artists, and the thing is, not all artists are creative in the way that's like creative brilliance. Also, not all creators, in the sense, especially content creators, they're not really creative. I actually think that in the world currently that we live in, a lot of the content is kind of the opposite of creative. The pattern that I'm seeing is that most of these algorithms reward attention and the things that keep you in this like low frequency loop. And I would argue that something that is like creatively brilliant is kind of on the opposite spectrum of that, where it's critical thought, engages critical thought, it makes you dive deeper. And that's not what these platforms reward, because it keeps you in low frequency loop, it keeps you addicted, it keeps you scrolling, it keeps you spend time on there, and that's how they make money. Almost like creativity has become something that is dead in a way, not just from like an algorithm standpoint. There's not a lot of people that are as creative collectively as there used to be. I also do think this ties into just the world we live in, and how it's not just media that's corrupted and doesn't reward what it should reward, I guess, where I think it should reward. It's also about the food. When someone is eating whole foods. That is real foods created from the earth, like source, could call it source energy, you know, that is life force energy flowing through your body, and consciousness itself and creation, life itself, which the ultimate creator's creation is this life in us. We are all extensions of the creator of the world, and this is all like this divine world we live in its original state, which was nature. So when you consume nature that's flowing through you, and you have the ability to be more creative, the more people that have their original thoughts or clear thinking, is because they are pursuing it. It's this devotion. It's not just about the pain being broken open on that psyche level. It's also about your devotion to it. I go on walks. That is a huge part of my process, where I sometimes will just go on a walk for 2 hours just to process this thought or this idea, to gain clarity. And that is also tying into like the obsessiveness, can you say that word? Devotion. I like the word devotion better. You have to be so devoted, and you have to be devoted to the craft. It just goes back to you're experiencing life through you. You're allowing thoughts and ideas to flow through you, almost in a sense if you were a channel. You're opening yourself up to life from a different way of living. It's life through you, and trying to translate your existence into something versus like a more experiential life. It's like, I'm here to experience the flavors in the world. Creative life is building a system, and it's building this world. And I feel like people that are here to experience life, it's not that one is better than the other, but to experience life is like to live in that world that someone else has built. I think going down this path of living this creative life like does not mean necessarily like you are more creative than a person who has a creative hobby. It just means like that is your life, and that's the path that you've chosen. Inherently, I think that we are all creative. You think of a child when it's born, like what a child doing? They're running around, they're expressing life through them, they're drawing, they're look at the rocks, and they're different children, depending on who you are and your soul and your environment, are just attracted to different things. We lose that childlike curiosity and innocence because of the conformity and the conditioning and the shame, the limiting beliefs and everything that's just instilled in us. We lose that. But like, I think that this is special to have something, to be a hobby. Not everything has to be this creative path, but I do think there's a difference living a creative life versus having it as a hobby. A hobby is more, it's fun, and I think that sometimes you lose the fun in creating when it becomes this obsession. I love anything to do with videos and things like that, but for the last month and a half I have not picked up my camera to record anything because I've just been avoiding it, because I've been in deep reflection. I just have had it right now with like creating videos. I'm diverging into a different form. Sometimes you just get sick of it, but it's like, okay, well, this is a path I've chosen for my creative life, so you don't have this other outlet so much. Like, I can turn to something else creative or whatever, but I think that like when you live this more experience-based life, healthier in a way. It is more healthier because you have these different segments. It's like you, and then you have their different parts of life. It's all encompassed in this one thing. Sometimes I do feel like that is a higher quality of life. Before I get into this experience-based life, I do think the creative path it's just lonelier. I don't feel lonely, but I used to feel lonely, and then I feel like I found that wholeness within. But that being said, we are humans and we are built for human connection. It's my own fault, I guess, in one sense. Like, I don't naturally connect with other people, but I think like a lot of creative people that think differently, they have a hard time connecting anyway. So like, well, it's like I'm not really sacrificing that, but you do need a lot of time alone. You need a lot of time processing things, processing your truth, because like if you don't process your truth and your story, which sometimes takes years, it literally takes, like, I'm still processing my last breakup to understand what happened, really, like the full extent. And this was like 3.5 years ago. I've never been on a date with a guy in like 3.5 years since my ex-boyfriend. For the most part, I've avoided men. I do think this also goes down to this like nervous system thing. People that like to more experience life, like their nervous system lights up when they're in the presence of other people. And I wish that was the case with me. I wish that I could be around people that I immediately didn't think like, oh my god, I'd rather be alone, like doing something creative. I wish I genuinely enjoyed other people's company. And like maybe I just have not met the people for me. But it's like, even if I come across people that I'm like, okay, you're a cool person, like whatever, like I would rather be alone. Like I would rather be alone. I feel lonely only when I'm with other people. I'm alone, I'm like, I'm in solitude. This is peace for me. But then also I'm like, you can't have both, you know? Like I see that people, I get a little bit jealous. I'm like, well, I wish I had a, you know, family, and I wish I had this love and this warmth. And like at the end of the day, I think, okay, well, what's the point of like all of this if you don't have people to share it with? That's like also a point of life, to have memories and experiences and love for sure is like, you could say, the point of life. Like we could say we originate from love, we come from love. You say God is love. Why can't I live and not be so obsessed with becoming? What is it about me that I can't be happy in the present? My brain is just not wired that way. But I wish it was at times. Like I'm grateful to have a creative brain, but I wish it was. It does come a lot down to presence. The more content people that experience, people that value experience-based lives, like they're more content. Like they value the presence more. They value presence over evolution. And again, like not one is right or wrong. I feel like to value evolution though, it is more to like have a futuristic mindset and a visionary mindset and to live more in the future, which I respect and I love that about myself. But when you're constantly in the future, or you're working on healing things from your past and like processing that, it's hard to be in the present when you're constantly like seeing the future. Okay, where's this creativity going to take me? Thinking about that and constantly thinking about the path, because if you're not thinking about the path, then like you're kind of aimless in a way if you are on this creative path. But then if you're in the past, it's a lot of living inside your head and inside yourself. Even if it's peace, even if you have peace, it's still this flow and this pull between the future and the past, constantly this pendulum that's spinning, and like you're going these cycles, and it is this clinical way of living. There's periods of time where you are just doing this one creative project or something creative, and there's times where you're doing this other facet, like you're in the writing for a month and you're in complete isolation, or times where you're doing this and it's like this whirlwind, and it's less calm. In one sense, it's less calm because like you don't have that peace of, okay, this is my life, like these are my people, these are the people for me, this is my family. Some people have a home, they have that stability, and just don't live in this spiral life. And it's interesting because like I do see a lot of people talking about community. And I think actually like a lot of creators talk about like, oh, like we need community in the future is community. And that's interesting because from humanity's standpoint, like yeah, we need community, but also like I think that a lot of people have community, and I think that sometimes like it's not necessarily normal to create and to like film yourself and post online. I think that there's a lot of more normal people that have more balanced and like healthier lives, and I think that a lot of what we see online, we don't understand that we're coming from the way a lot of people view the world online. Even if they do promote, you know, more surface level content or whatever it is, it's still a different way of seeing the world. Like it's not inherently normal to like do that. I think that actually a lot of people do have community, and they have friend circles and they have friend groups, and maybe it's not perfect, or maybe not like everyone understands you at soul level, but like they do have that nurturing aspect to life. People that don't have community in a sense are sometimes people that are creators. The more creative you are, the less community you do have, and I think the more you also become successful as a creative, the less people you have. You can have people around you, but it's like, is it the intentions right? Is the intentions pure? As like a creative person, I think it's really hard to not put your worth in what you create. I don't think I do. Like I feel like I am one with my creations, but like I feel detached because I'm like, okay, well in a week I'm different, and like no one really knows you. They know like the sliver of you. I mean, I've made mistakes with like what I've posted online. Not a mistake, I've learned from it. One time I was in the freaking ethers, my most high spiritual states, and I thought it was like authenticity to share these moments, and looking back, I'm like, okay, well, you know, you could have kept that for yourself. I'm looking back on myself with like a whole different perspective. You look insane with this mentality, with a more grounded mentality. But when I was in that experience, it was like so truthful, and it was truthful. Now I'm not at that frequency, I'm not at that vibration, because you can't constantly be in that. And so that requires a lot of self-reflection, which is very uncomfortable. In a sense, like I'm trying to translate my soul, but then it's very difficult to do so going through yourself. I'm not grounded all the time. I feel very grounded right now. This is the first time since January I have felt, this is the first time in probably like at least 6 months I felt this grounded, because I've just gone through certain shifts within myself. And that's what happens when you commit to this path of evolution. You are changing, but change hurts, it's painful. And yeah, it's like constantly also facing judgment from like the external world. It's harder to be more grounded for both sense when you're being creative, because like you have the external world, and also because when you do open yourself up to that path evolution and questioning, and you are questioning what people say, because I think it's healthy to actually question other people's perspectives, not because it's like something you should listen to, but question it for yourself, to challenge yourself, to help you grow. But I think, yeah, like it's just a less grounded life. I think that there's something very wholesome and special about living a life where it's chaotic, it's more simple, in a sense, where it's like, okay, well, it's Friday night, like we have our place and we're going with friends and we have these like family friends. And I look at people's lives and I look around a lot, especially when I go on walks, and like they're living these like very cute little lives. And even though like I wouldn't want that, sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I do, because like it's the soul of life to have other people around you as well. So in an ideal world, and if all of these things and these systems are automated, in this ideal world, like I don't think that everyone would be creative. People would more have time for creative hobbies, but I don't think a lot more people were pursuing a creative career. I would always be doing what I want to do, like no matter how much money I have. But you have to be driven by something within you. To live is an act of creation. There's a million things that you can do to be creative. Like you do not have to be an artist or to make it your path again to be creative. Like having a child is literally the birth of creation. Like women have this like portal within them that it's like the women are the birth of creation, and having that is just as much of like a creative act. And in everything in life is creation and creative, and it's all divine. And you know, you don't have to make it your entire life for it to mean something. Being creative is about shaping reality. If every single person were here to do that and to be creative in the way where what they pursue with like all of them, what would this world be? That would not make the world go round. Society is not something like I necessarily prescribe to, because I look at society and I look how it's ill, and I look how it's sick, and I look at how what's normalized in society, you know, and it's not something I agree with. So if I say society would collapse, I'd be like, okay, good, like society needs to collapse. But the sense of, I think society should collapse for humanity so we can build this new society. Thinking about like an ideal society, I think that people would do these different things. That's what makes a society work. We all have different parts and to play in it. If everyone was like the architect, what would other people do? Sometimes like someone's meant to play in the playground, and they're not meant to build the playground, and through playing they get inspired by this rock, and then they start to like do something with that and build this thing, and or they meet their friend and they, you know, they have a story. Like creation is not confined to greatness within being creative. I do think a lot of this comes down to destiny. Why are people fundamentally wired a certain way? There are people in this world that are just fundamentally different. When I think about destiny, I'm like, okay, well, why is it that some people see the world differently? Why is it them that sees the world differently versus the 90% of people who follow this path? And even though their lives are all different, they don't follow that outlier, black sheep, outcast path. What is it about these people that are different? You can go into the psyche, like we talked about, and how like a lot of these people come from like hardships and things, like to see the world differently on a fundamental level. It comes from being broken open in a lot of ways to consciousness. I do believe that is their path. That's why their soul came to earth. I do believe, you know, we are souls having this human experience, and their soul chose that. Their soul came to earth to experience that. That was what the obstacles or what they needed to experience in that lifetime. At the end of the day, life is not about what you achieve or what you do. It's about your experience. So even if you do apply yourself creatively and you create and that fulfills your soul, it's not about achieving. It is about experience. And some souls are here to experience love, to experience flavor, diversity, range, to experience culture. Some souls need like more of a rest life, and they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna live this more low-key life because, you know, in the next life I'm popping off. But there's some souls, I want to claim my karma. I want to reach my potential. This is what I want this life. Like, I want to explore divine truth, divine paradoxes of life, consciousness. And, you know, I'm gonna be a loner and I'm gonna be an outcast, but like, this is what my soul longs to experience. Yeah, like some souls just are not here to experience that. I think that's what it comes down to as well. The destiny. I do believe this wholeheartedly because of like my own personal experiences with this. But again, like everyone has their own perspectives on life, perspectives of truth. I think that also like experience feeds creativity, which is interesting because I did say like the more someone is creative, like the more that they're kind of isolated from life. But I do think, again, like it goes back to the cycle thing, like it's constantly a paradox because everything in life is a paradox. You look at nature. Nature is our greatest teacher. I always say this: nature is dark and it's light. Everything about nature has like a paradox in it. My camera did die, so I lost my train of thought. I think there's this narrative where people that have creative success, it's like, look at me, like I made it. While it's admirable to apply yourself to greatness or to certain things, the definition of success is just so different for everyone. Success could mean something completely entirely different. Peace, like having a family, you can do both, but you definitely can't have it all, especially not at the same time. We only have so much time and energy, and there's certain sacrifices you do have to make, especially if you want to take your creative path far in a sense of a career. There's no right way to live a life. We are here to experience being alive. And no matter if you are a creative or going down this path of more of experimental life or a creative life, collectively as humans, like we go through a lot of the same experiences. We all still go through loss. We all still experience some type of trauma. Coming to Earth and living this existence in general is just hard. There's beauty in the world, and I do choose to be optimistic about life. Even though there is so much destruction in this world, there's also so much beauty. Again, with the paradoxes. We all experience the range of human emotions, anger, pain. Just like one is choosing to more be, and one is choosing to more translate it. It's not one greater path. It's not this hierarchy path. It's a different plane. Different plane even implies hierarchy. It's just this different existences. In a sense, I have been thinking about this personally a lot lately because even though I'm consciously aware I'm on this path, in my head I'm like, I want it all. I want it all. Like part of me does want family, and I do want, I always think we want what we don't have. It's like, what do you want more, I guess? And yeah, there's some people that have it both, but then I'm like, okay, well, if I were to have a family and to do certain things and to do all these other things, it would take away from what I really want to create. And when I have really been reflecting on that, if I had to choose personally, is to pursue my creative path heavier. There's something in me that I have to translate, and when I examine why am I like this, for me, fulfillment comes from creating from within. And that's a whole nother topic. I think women have been lied to about their purpose, and women are taught that no career will make a woman happier than like having kids. And maybe I will have kids one day and stuff like that, but no career will make a woman happier than having kids. But I think that it's different when you don't follow a career, but you follow a purpose. When you follow a creative path and you're creating from within, that is creating from the portal, and that's the womb, and that's where babies come from. Like, that's creating life. When women create from life, and men can create too. I'm just saying, like, women have this portal, and women have been lied to about our existence. But there's not one size fit all answer to fulfillment as human beings. Like, human beings, yes, there's masculine, feminine energies, and there's all these things and biological differences, and the way I operate in the world to achieve what I want to achieve is not going to happen doing it like a man. That's a whole nother topic. You know, I could talk about that for like an hour, and I probably will soon. But it's just, there's a multitude of ways to live life, and humans are far more complex. And I think the way to find what kind of path is for you is to experiment. Even all creativity comes from experiment, and to listen to that voice within and to follow that voice within. But I just think that it's not necessarily, like, it's not correlated to happiness 100% of the time. Like, I don't think purpose is all about happiness and living a happy life. Anyways, that's all I have for today. This is my first episode of my new podcast. I'm like, you know what, we're changing this, because in the past, like, I just was so in the ethers, whatever you want to call it. I had to reflect hard about how I present to the world, because even though I do see the world differently, I don't know if I want to create when I'm like in another dimension or whatever you want to call it. I can make sense more to people when I'm in a grounded state, because I realize, okay, if I already see the world differently, there's ways you have to translate that. And I always felt like, no, people have to understand me. No, like, that was such a bratty, entitled way. Again, this whole thing, this kind of path is not for everyone. And failure has to be your best friend. Not that, like, you need recognition for creative success. I mean, depends what your definition of creative success is. For me, it's about, like, executing on my vision, not about views. But I'm so far from that. Like, I have so much skills and things I need to learn. When you do something and you think it's like a genius, and then it comes out, you produce it or whatever, and you're like, oh my god, this is, and you watch it with a completely different state of mind. You're just like, this is not what I thought it was. So you have to do a lot of self-reflection. In a way, I'm like, maybe I'm just criticizing myself too hard. I definitely, like, am criticizing myself. And when I watch something in a different state or read something, I'm like, oh my god, why are you writing about this? Why are you doing this? Like, I just wrote something not long ago, and when I was kind of out of that, like, writing state, a couple of days later, I'm like, you have no business writing about this. It was about desire and containment in a more sensual way, but I'm like, you have no idea, you have no business talking about this. You literally have had one kiss in the last 7 years, almost 4 years ago. Like, you have no business writing about this, but I do, because it's desire and it comes from within, and I'm allowed to do what I want, and you don't have to define yourself. Creativity, I also think that's the thing. Like, I felt like I cannot change, or I've changed so much. What sent me through a spiritual awakening was immense trauma. Before the trauma broke open my entire psyche, I self-destructed. That was not pretty. So, like, I've changed so much, and now I feel like my frontal lobe is actually developing. Creating is just like, it's messy. It's not this glamorized life I think people show. It is a lot more of a sacrifice in a large sense. So yeah, that's all I have for today. Thank you for listening.